I couldn't really get any loans, so my parents had given me some money. I had an ex-boyfriend who gave me money, which I would never suggest. I paid that off within a year.
I feel like we should dive into that one a little bit, right? the do's and don'ts.
The do's
from
and don'ts.
Renee.
That's a definite don't.
Welcome to the Founder's Story podcast, where we learn from entrepreneurs about their journey from their first inspiration to their first employee and even the steps they took to become the powerhouses they are today. Welcome back to another episode. My name is Rick Porter. I am your host today, and today we are joined by, it's almost controversial if I say like delicious or whatever, right? A fantastic guest. You guys are going to love to hear her story. You've probably already heard, portions of it, certainly in the past, but today I'm actually joined by Renee Diaz. She is the president and CEO of Queen Cups and Diazsta's Design. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, Diazsta.
Diazsta's.
Yeah, like Fiesta, but my last name.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. You're actually a former U.S. Small Business Association Young Entrepreneur of the Year, I believe,
Yes.
2019, right?
Yep.
A columnist in the Worcester Business Journal.
Yep.
Some really great columns, one that I read a lot myself as well. And I actually just recently listened to your Worcester State. That was 2019 as well.
Yeah, that
2019.
was a good year for me,
Yeah,
2019.
commencement speaker. Yeah, and it was a really good speech, and I do put my cart away.
Thank
One of
you.
your-
Everybody thinks of me now because of that.
So, I'm very excited to hear your story because I think I've heard you give, talk about it in the past or write about it in the past. And I think, one of my favorite parts about your story is how open and honest, right? I think you've been quoted or have said multiple times that you spent the first several years in business where you felt like you were, crying almost every day. So I'm interested to kind of hear that story and that transformation that your business has gone through. And then just kind of on a side note, before we even get started, here at Cinch IT, whether you know this or not, we actually have a Queen's Cup tradition. So on an employee's birthday, there's like 50 employees, right? And on every employee's birthday, we go out and we get some sort of sweets, right? Yep. Sometimes that's your giant cookies. That's like one of my favorites. Or it's just, we'll go out and just get packages and packages of cupcakes.
Yep.
And the rule is you have to say happy birthday before you're allowed to grab a cupcake to that person. So
That's a good
we've tasted all of your desserts, I guarantee you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
They are absolutely delicious. So I think we're all excited to hear your story today. So without any further ado, why don't you take us back to 2012?
Yeah.
Or even earlier?
So 2011, I was a senior at Worcester State, and I was baking for fun at home. I worked in an after-school program, and I had a Friday off randomly, and my mom had a bunch of cake mix at home. I think you could buy, like, at BJ's, you could get, like, 9 cake mixes. I don't know. And I knew I was going home with my friends that night, so I made these cupcakes, and I tried to do something different with them, and one of my best friends loves chocolate raspberry just like I do, and I made chocolate raspberry cupcakes, and I made some weird green frosting with it. When I look back on the photos, it's so funny. And I just remember it pretty vividly. I'm just the type of person who becomes obsessed with things, and not always a good thing, but so once my friends really liked the cupcakes, I just couldn't get it out of my head. And Instagram hadn't really, I think it had just come out. And I just would take pictures of what I would make. And, I'd go to school, I'd work, and then I would come home and make all different types of cupcakes out of my parents' kitchen and take pictures and post them online. And my mom's super mom, so she was obsessed with the idea. And my dad's a chef. He's been in the food service world forever. So he would, teach me things. I obviously stopped using box mix. And, by May, when I was supposed to graduate, I had a psych degree, no job, didn't want to go back to school. School was never really my thing. I always felt like I could run the world, but I could never take a test to show it. I wanted to be a teacher my whole life, and I would have never passed the MTELs. So there was this tiny little shop down the street from my parents' house, and my mom called the landlord and asked if it was for rent, and they said yeah. We showed up on a Saturday, and my mom gave them $100, and I was kind of thrown into opening a bakery. I mean, mind you, I had no business sense. I had never worked in a bakery. I worked with kids my whole life. I had no idea what I was doing, but, I had a lot of orders out of my house, and, my Facebook page had like 100 likes. I thought I was like destined for greatness.
You're so popular, right?
Yeah. And so, when I think back, it's so crazy that I just went for it. I was 23, and I just always said, well, I have a degree, so if it doesn't work out,
you can fall back on it.
Yeah. And I didn't have too much student debt. So I was able to start the first Queen's Cups with about $18,000, which that would be a miracle if that were to happen again today, But I was so young, though, and I, obviously debt to income, and I couldn't really get any loans. So my parents had given me some money. I had an ex-boyfriend who gave me money, which I would never suggest. I paid that off within a year.
I feel like we should dive into that one a little bit, right? the do's and don'ts.
The do's and
Renee.
don'ts. That's a definite don't.
I think but that's a struggle that all aspiring entrepreneurs go through, right? Is you have a great idea or a talent. So my first question, and I actually probably should have said this from the beginning. So my daughter, my middle daughter is 7 years old, and she wants to be a baker.
Nice.
Someday. So her name is Kinsey. Mm-hmm. She'll be very excited that I'm talking to you because she loves your stuff as well. But she actually already owns the domain Crazy Cakes with K's for Kinsey.
Love that. Yep.
There's not a website on it, but she wanted me to buy it because she wants to. That's what she wants to do. And so it's fantastic that you had family to kind of inspire you and teach you and stuff like that. Like you said, your dad was a chef as well. I do not have those skills whatsoever. So we stick to the cookbooks for her. But I mean, was it something you were just great at from the very beginning?
No, like I said, I become obsessed. So it's all I think about, and I'll do it until I'm good at it.
Gotcha.
And
so practice.
Yeah, practice. And I'm a creative person. I'm able to look at something and come up with an idea. So I think that worked in my favor. And, I grew up watching my dad work all these hours and hate his job. And then I, on the other hand, watched my mom. She was a teacher's aide, and she loved her job. So it was like I never wanted to go in the food world because I watched my dad be so, he just didn't, not that he didn't like it, because I know that he enjoys cooking and everything, but there's so much that goes into it. I think just watching how he worked inspired me, because now that I'm older, I get it. When I was younger, I'd be like, well, why isn't he at my basketball games and things like that? But I get it. So from my mom, I learned that you want to love what you do. And from my dad, I learned the work ethic. Yeah. So I've always been willing to outwork, not necessarily anyone. I'm a competitive person. Like if I'm in a room, I'm competitive, but I'm not like a jerk, I don't mind
a
sacrifice.
Healthy competition.
Yeah, I don't mind sacrifice. I don't mind working hard to a fault sometimes, but so I think that kind of helped.
Yeah, and then you're trying to raise money to get off the ground, and you raise $18,000. Which congratulations, because it's not easy when you're first starting off, and I think that's probably the second challenge that a lot of business owners make. One, do I have a skill, and then two, how can I turn that into a business?
Right.
How can I raise money to do that? And you recommend don't do the boyfriend, the ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend route.
I think, now I'm obviously very grateful for that. His dad had given me a small loan because they were business people, and I didn't understand anything about business. I just wanted to make cupcakes and make pretty things.
Sure.
And, I never was in it for the money. I didn't understand that part of it. I had no idea what a P&L and all those things are. So his dad had given me a little bit of money, and he had given me a little bit of money, but I hate sitting at a table with people that I owe money to.
Sure. Yeah.
So
I can understand that.
Yeah. So, I paid those both back within a year. It's not something I would suggest, but if I didn't do it, then the Queen's Cups wouldn't have started. So, I'll always be grateful that they believed in me for that, and then grateful for my parents for giving me the rest of it.
Yeah. So you got $18,000 and you're off to the races. Walk me through. What was that first year of business like?
Oh, God. I was thinking about this because I was going on the podcast, and the first year our sales were like $128,000. And, it's kind of crazy when you think about it, right?
That's
because
a lot of cupcakes.
It's just something that, I really had no idea what I was doing, and I just went for it. And I remember writing down what I thought my day would be like, right? Like I'd put in a lunch or something, like, and it was not like that at all. It was just a constant grind. And, I'm just thankful that I didn't give up because I could have. But, back then it was so like I was obviously stressed because it was so new. I wasn't sleeping. I still don't sleep, but it's a different ball game now. It just, when I think back on it, I'm so grateful for those times. Like sometimes I wish I could go back to the simpler times, but yeah, so it was just me doing everything. For the first few weeks I had friends and my family, but then everyone has their own life and they go back to work, and I would go in early, I would make all the stuff, I would do the dishes, I would help the customers, I would do social media, and man, that was a lot.
I absolutely know that story. And I know what you mean. I've had a couple guys who have been with me for over a decade now.
Yeah.
And it's funny, if we get together and we start chatting, we reminisce about back when it was difficult.
Yeah, right.
Back when it was hard. Like, you guys have no idea how good you have it, right? So I understand that. Yeah. I could absolutely see that. And you do appreciate it in things I'm sure were a lot simpler.
For sure. And I think now, because it's been almost 9 years, that like I have such an amazing staff, and most of them have been with me for over 3 years now, but nobody's there that was there in the beginning. And it's difficult to keep that story going, right?
Yeah.
Because they see me now where like I can go in this morning and like they're the ones baking and everything. And I'm like, oh, I'm leaving to go on a podcast. That's probably what they see. But there was so many years I missed out on so much stuff. I missed out on birthdays and family events and friends stuff. Anytime my best friends would get married, it's like I could never go to the bachelorette party until the last day when everyone's hungover and no one wants to do anything. But like I would just, I remember for my sister-in-law when she married my brother, like I hopped on a ferry on the very last day. And, those are things that you miss out on because you sacrifice. But I always had a vision in my head, like, I'm just going to work really hard right now. And then when I'm older, I'll be able to like live this life that I dream of.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I guess that made those times
easier to get through.
Yeah,
absolutely. And so it sounds like the social media was huge for you,
yeah.
right? When Instagram was just coming out. Is that what led to a lot of the success, you think, or do you have a couple other things that?
I definitely think it was social media, because social media then wasn't what it is now. Like now people run it as a business, but for me, I was just like, I always want to bake fresh. I always want to have creative things. In 9 years, our display case has never been the same, not even once, because I don't like walking into a place not knowing when something was made. And I just always wanted to show that. And I just think, people see with their eyes. And 9 years ago, that wasn't a thought in my head. But now, I'm hiring people that are going to school for social media. I think it's the craziest thing.
Yeah.
But people like seeing the pictures. They like seeing what we had for flavors. And I just remember one time not posting by a certain amount of time. My mom's like, you have to post on Facebook. Like, people are waiting for this.
People want to know. That's your menu almost.
And then, I was probably annoyed, like, oh, leave me alone, But it makes so much sense. And even now, we could never run our business without social media. And it's a way to connect with customers. And I love seeing people's photos of when they've come in or what they've eaten, or they buy a birthday cake and they have the cutest kid ever, and they're taking, the pictures and the pictures with the dogs. So I definitely think it was social media. And I just kept at it. $128,000 for a year isn't a lot of money, but it was then, sure. Obviously, to me, like, you just don't know when you're in it. And then, then you'd see it grow. The next year was $250,000. And by year 3, we started getting really busy. And I had to hire people and things like that. So you just don't know when you're in it until after.
If we can, 2-3 years in, mm-hmm. we still in the Millbury location at that point? So this is before?
We were there for 4.5 years, okay. I think. Yep.
Perfect. So we're still in the Millbury location. It's getting busier. You're hiring more people. How was that growth? Was it easy to find good people? Was it a challenge for you?
I think when most people start their businesses, they hire friends and family.
Yeah. And now for you, was that a good experience or a bad? Because I hear both ways.
Yeah. Like my best friends in the world all started with me, even if they work like a day. One of my best friends was in law school. She'd work one day. And then my other friend was getting her master's in social work. She'd work one day. I don't think it's the greatest thing. I'm an emotional person, and I definitely invest in my employees. So I think, the closer you are with people, it's tough. And I was so young that people didn't view me as a boss, and I didn't view myself as a boss. Like, I always would act like we were all equal.
Sure.
But, you're never equal. Like, when you go home and you have to think about everything that,
Yeah.
So I had to do it. Both my parents worked for me. They left, they came back, they left again. Now it's best, because I just missed my family. Everything was like, I didn't want to hang out with them after work because I was with them all day.
Yep. And then when you did hang out after work, you're probably talking about work.
Yeah, and I have 2 older brothers, and they're both successful, and they're smart, and they have families and stuff, and it wasn't fair to them, and I didn't like that. I didn't want to talk about work. I wanted us to be a family, and I think when we moved to Worcester, it wasn't a good thing for us to all work together.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, especially like my mom, because we're best friends. My dad and I, like, if he was acting a certain way, I could say to him, but it wasn't like a big deal, But with your mom, it's always a little bit different. So both parents was tough in the workplace.
I can imagine. It almost sounds like your psychology degree might have come back into play and assisted in the business side.
And, your parents are always protective of you. And I'm sure it's not always easy finding great help. I feel really lucky for who I have now. But I've had some people along the way that weren't a good fit, who definitely took advantage of me. And I was still learning how to be a boss too. Like, I'm a reasonable person. I know I'm not perfect. So,
how do you think you learned to be a boss? Was it trial and error? Did you have a mentor that you eventually ran into that kind of coached you along the way? Or
yeah, I've had a lot of great mentors. Like Mike Covino is always, anytime I've needed anything, I can just email him. Brian Treitman of BT's, Amy Chase from Crompton. Well, she has like 400 businesses now, but and you just kind of learn from people. And I'm just never going to be one of those people who can completely separate. When you work for me, I care about you. I care about your family, and I want to do whatever I can for you. But along the way, you kind of realize, like, I'm a person too, and I have a family, and I have things I have to take care of too. So I just think as I got a little bit older and a little bit more confident, and I think when, like a Brian Treitman or someone like or Pete Reno from Smokestack and Olo, when they like showed me that they really respected me, I was like, oh my God, really? These are like idols to me. And they treated me like I was an equal to them. And I think that kind of gave me a confidence boost too. Yeah.
And I've heard you talk about and write about Brian before. And,
yep.
and he, at some point you guys connected, and he kind of even went through financials and processes and stuff like that. I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs who may be listening, and they've thought to themselves, I would love a mentor. But how do I get one? How do I reach out? How did you guys connect? How did you make that connection?
I think he just BT just has this star power about him. I was going through a really difficult time. Both my parents had left, and we had moved to Worcester, and everything was just crazy. And I just felt like I had no control. And just, we got the 40 Under 40 award together, and just like one random rainy day, he reached out to me. He's like, how are you doing? And I'm like, I'm a mess. And he said, well, I'll be there tomorrow. And he just went through everything with me. It wasn't like I reached out to him and said, I want to be I
need help.
Yeah. He reached out. Even last week, he reached out to me just like, how are you doing? I'm checking in. And I'm like, you always do this when I need someone to talk to. And I just
That's pretty unique in a person.
Yeah.
Though,
I think it has to come like organic too. It's, when someone approaches you and say, I want you to be my mentor, it's hard because it has to be organic. You have to be, you're sharing like pretty significant like things with them, showing someone your financials and things like that. So I think it works out better that way.
Yeah. So start a relationship with someone long before you looked for them to be a mentor to you and things
because,
like that.
He gave me a lot of advice, but his business is different than mine, even though it's food. So, and Amy and I are really close, and our businesses are very different, but similar in some ways. So we're able to help each other. But yeah, I think it's like having that relationship and building the trust, just because you never know, like you're sharing financial stuff with people and you just hope that they don't go tell other people, it kind of secrets.
Sure.
You have to be friends.
It's a lot of trust. You're putting trust into someone. I absolutely understand that. So it's 4.5 years later, you do move to Worcester, right into that Canal District. I love that building, right? So much character to it. you start to connect with mentors and people. They're treating you like equals. You have all this. Take us from there. How does it go once you're in Worcester and you're starting to connect with those people?
Yeah, I mean, I never thought there was a place for me in Worcester, you know, but Amy really said there is. And then I connected with my landlord, Ed Murphy, and I walked in the building and I just knew, you know, it was just one of those feelings like, I love this building. I think I can transform it. And then when we started, I just had I had no idea. I went from 4 or 5 employees to 19, and you're like trying to, like, the volume that you have to do, it wasn't just cupcakes anymore. I had to do all this other stuff. The money was way different. Just everything that came with it was really intense. And I think it took like 2 years for me to feel a little bit more settled in this space. Like once I got the crew that I have now.
Would you say it kind of felt more like a risk? You took on a bigger lease, I'm assuming, and a bigger building, a ton more people,
my rent
more
used
product.
to be $550 a month.
Whew.
Yeah,
You can't get that anywhere now.
And I remember being like, oh my God, you know, hopefully I can pay that. And definitely now it's a lot more, and it's a huge risk. And, you know, the financial part of a business is so daunting. And especially when you're responsible for other people. But, you know, when I moved to Worcester, I had to get a loan, and I was denied by multiple banks. But Cornerstone Bank really cared about me. They called me in. They wanted to meet with me. They wanted to hear my story. They cared about my family. And even now, like, I feel like I have the best bank and the best accountants, because I can call them at any time, and they will talk me off a ledge, or they'll like come up with some solution. And I'm very grateful for that, because not everyone is that comfortable with who they work with. You know, I had an accountant back in the day who always made me feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
And I was an idiot, but I didn't want you to make me feel that way.
I didn't want to pay you to tell me that.
Yeah, right. So I feel very grateful for like the people that I work with now. So, you know, Cornerstone really took a chance on me because I had no money. And I was going from 750 square feet to 3,200 square feet. You know, we had no idea what it was going to be like. Of course, I thought the build out was going to be 60,000. It ended up being 120,000. I mean, I had no idea. But, you know, you just learn as you go. I'm just not one of those people who sits and sulks. I give myself time to process, and then I'm like, all right, let's go. Like, what I have to do to get this done, and I'll do what I have to do, you know?
Yeah. And we, you know, at the beginning of this episode, we talked about you had a lot going on in 2019, right? You personally had a really great year from not only like your personal brand and being out there in the community, but the business was growing. And that's only 2 years after being into this space. Talk about that. You know, how did you go from, you know, the Queen Cups, which it was you branded it, you did a ton on social media, to now kind of transitioning yourself into this really respected entrepreneur that was asked to, you know, to talk and to write about business and stuff like that. How did that come about?
I love Brad Kane from the Worcester Business Journal, and he had me do, we were still in Millbury, he had me write a little blurb, and then you know, he asked to meet with me, and he just asked if I wanted to call him. He said he's been looking for something, and he liked how honest I was. So, you know, that happened. Like 2019 was a huge year for me because of the commencement speech at Worcester State. That was like, oh my God, you know, I remember.
I thought you did great.
The day before, well, here's advice I'll give. Never, on my wedding day in 2018, I got a massage that week. The massage brought out the flu that was underlying in my body. So I had the flu on my wedding day. And then the following year, 2019, I got a facial before the commencement speech. And my body had a weird reaction to the raspberry extract in my facial. So my face was like massive and red and dry for the commencement speech. So never do any of that stuff the week before a big event.
Yeah, I can tell you, I just watched the video, and I didn't notice it on video at least.
Okay.
But I say that all the time, is that, you know, I feel like I don't get sick very often.
Yeah.
But the second my body knows I'm going to have an opportunity to slow down, for me, it's around like New Year's Eve, I get sick.
You get sick, yeah.
It's like my body just needs to purge. So don't pamper yourself.
Don't pamper yourself.
Renee's biggest piece of advice today.
But, you know, it was such an amazing experience when Worcester State called me to be the speaker. I just remember thinking it was so funny. They're like, what's your rate? I was like, what do you mean rate? I was like, I'll do it for free, right? Like, thank you for the opportunity. That's amazing. And then I like,
because you're alumni as well, right?
Yeah. Then I Googled what people, charge for. I was like, well, I just bought a house. But you know what? They sent me this amazing rocking chair with the Worcester State
emblem
on it with my name engraved. And that's like the best gift ever.
Yeah.
So the commencement speech, the Business Entrepreneur of the Year through the SBA. I had bought a house. I finally went on my honeymoon. It was just like so much for me, but I was really struggling with like mental health because, you put yourself out there and, I write these articles sometimes for the Business Journal and I think you only see a glimpse. You see 800 words. I could write like 2,400 words, and people always think they know you, right? Like you own a business, they know you and they may see like, I don't know, like if I drive a nice car or whatever, they think like life is so easy, but they don't. And mental health is something in my family, history and a lot of us now, but I was really, really struggling with that. But, and I thought I had went through all this stuff beforehand, right? And then 2019 hit and like, I felt that everybody wanted to talk to me and everybody wanted a piece of me. And I was just like, I don't even know who I am. And I'm supposed to be giving all this advice to people. And I don't want to seem like a person who complains all the time. I'm just like honest, you know, and maybe to a fault sometimes. But, I was able to work through that. And then I just kind of cleared my schedule for myself, like I'm going to do what I can so I get out of bed, first of all, and focus on home. My husband is like the best, super supportive, but he's like, every time you start a project, you go 150% into it, and then by the time you get home, you have nothing left.
Yeah.
And that's not fair to him. So, I'm trying to take some time for myself. And, I think when opportunities come to you, you say yes to everything. And then you're like, okay, well, what's left for me? And
so is it safe to say you've learned to say no?
yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
Sometimes, yes. Yeah,
part,
that was a lie. I just caught you in a lie. So I'm the same way. I completely understand that. So, I think with your article and your column, pardon me, and the different things, I think one of the reasons why people like myself and others like it so much is it is refreshing because it's honest. And there's, I think a lot of things that you write about business owners think but might not say. Yeah. Right.
And so it's hard to admit sometimes,
Absolutely.
And people think like, oh, you're so successful, but there's things that go on, we're people. And that's sometimes if we get customer complaints or like, how it is, like just sometimes it's so easy when you're frustrated to just talk to someone a certain way. And I've really learned being an adult, like you can't talk to people just however you want. You know, there's like ramifications for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's all about how and this is what I'm trying to teach the younger people that work for me who, have these dreams. And, careers that they want. It's like all about how you approach people, how you talk to people, because people will never forget how you talk to them. And I think that's like business, life, whatever. No one will ever forget those things. So that's important to me too. But yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's the nice part of hearing about the things that you talk about and you write about, because we all think it, but we might not say it. That's why I say I caught you in a lie, because I'm the same way.
Yeah.
When people ask me, can you do this or can you help out with this? I'm a yes person. I literally, I'll be honest with you, I hate saying no.
Yeah, the disappointment.
Exactly. But similar to what you're talking about, who suffers every single time I refuse to say no?
Right.
My wife, my children.
Yeah.
Right. I have less time with them. So for me, it's a constant struggle to try to say no so that I can balance that off. And I fail at it every single day. I will admit that. I'm terrible at it.
Yeah.
So that's why I was hoping you can give me some advice there. Like, how do you say no?
Or I'm sure you get it too, that people will always ask like, oh, I want to start a business. How do I do it? And it's like, you have to have that fire in your belly. Like, it's not that easy. I can tell you everything in the world, but if you don't want to follow through with it, everyone's situation is different and you have to have the work ethic. Not everyone is built with a work ethic like that.
Yep.
And when you start a business, you have to go all in. So
absolutely. But if you have a plan B, it might not work out for you.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I love it. So 2019 was fantastic. 2020 for most people was obviously incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
You're still here. Thoughts on 2020? Anything that you guys focused on or changed up or did differently?
Yeah, I mean, we had to change everything overnight pretty much. But But, we learned so much from 2020, just to still be in business was amazing.
Yep.
There was obviously some very difficult parts of it, but we never had an online platform where you could order online. Then, I figured it out and we were able to do that. And I just feel like my staff, everyone just kind of, it was like go mode. Like we weren't just sitting around like, oh God, I can't believe this is happening to us. It's like, okay, well, what are we going to do? And every week we would get better. And that's what's important about having a great staff is that, this was so new to us. We were open crazy hours, pretty much 10 to 9 every day. And all of a sudden it was like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but they were almost working more than they did during those other times because you had to bake everything per order. And every week we would like meet and say, oh, I think we can do this next week and it'll be easier and more efficient, but not, our quality will be better.
Sure.
And that was awesome. And then, I had to like rebuild my shop pretty much. I'd spent all this money 3 years ago and then now I had to do all this construction and I was lucky to get the PPP loan, but I was one of the first people to get it and they kept changing the rules.
Yeah, you didn't get as much as you probably could have if you knew all the rules at the time.
Well, I think I got what I got a good amount, but when you first got it, you had to spend it all in 8 weeks. So I was like, well, how am I going to spend all this money in 8 weeks? So I gave out bonuses. I paid off like utilities. I paid 6 months of rent. And then there was like no more money left, but they had changed the rules.
Yeah.
And then the bank's like, I don't know, just like have everything ready for the forgiveness part of it. So this time around, I was lucky enough to get it again. And I'm like, I'm being way smarter this time. Like, I don't even care if it just sits there. I'm not going to like spend it all in 8 weeks.
Yeah.
That was such a crazy thought. I was like, how am I going to spend? I've never, so then when we reopened to the public, it was like we tried to open a little bit earlier. We tried to do breakfast stuff. We realized that's not really our jam, and so once again, we had to change I was like constant changing, constant figuring it out. And I give a lot of credit for the people that work for me because it was like, I'm one of those people. I have these ideas and then it won't get out of my head. So,
So they're along for the ride.
They're along for the ride. And the majority of us have worked together for so long now that they don't have a problem telling me like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And
You've lost your mind.
They're like, you lost your mind, but this may work. But, it wasn't the greatest year. We've grown every single year since we've been open. Obviously this year we weren't, but there was a lot of positives to take out of it. There was a lot of heartbreak when I think about the small businesses that didn't make it. And, a lot of these loans and everything you had to apply for, you had to have all this paperwork. Mm-hmm. And I only had this paperwork because I finally have a good team that I work with, accountants and bookkeepers and stuff like that. But when I think about how I was in Millbury, I would be out of business because I don't have that stuff.
Absolutely.
And I felt so bad for people like that and businesses and how much money and, everything that you put into it. The Worcester Public Market had just opened and then this happened. But it looks like the majority of them are all still there. So,
yeah, I've seen it. It seems like there's you see some new people coming in and out, but
yeah, which is like would have happened anyways, even if there wasn't a pandemic. Absolutely. So, but it was amazing to see the support around the city, and even when I had to close because one of my employees had COVID, just the support from everyone was, I don't know, you can't even put it into words. So yeah. I tried to look back on it like, yeah, it was a pretty shitty year, but there was a lot of good that came out of it too. So
yeah, absolutely. So looking ahead at 2021, we got the ballpark.
Yep.
It's coming along. Hopefully you hopeful for 2021 with the ballpark coming in. You think that's going to help with business a little bit or kind of help bring up that area some?
Even like the past few weeks, so many people have come into the neighborhood. So things are changing. I hope so. A lot of people, you go to like a Red Sox game, you kind of just like go into the city to go to the game and then unless there's like something like right around there.
Yep.
But I think it'll, show people our neighborhood. I think the construction, everything they're doing down there, like Kelly Square, that was great.
Yep.
So I think it's definitely a positive.
Yeah.
I hope. I hope there's like a lot of parking that comes along with it, but
I don't know where that's going to go. I was actually just down. I actually walked in between those stairs of your building last night.
Oh, God.
I was down there with one of our franchisees. We went to dinner at Boccato, actually.
Oh,
but
yeah.
we were walking around that area. And yes, parking is always, I think,
Yeah.
going to be difficult down there for
Oh,
sure.
I mean, it's like that in a city. I've complained about it before. I get it. It's tough because there's so much housing now. You know, I share my parking lot with tenants, and a lot of them work from home now.
Yep.
So when they're not supposed to be, you know, it just is what it is. But
Hopefully a lot of that stuff starts
Yeah.
to go back to normal
but
a little
I
bit.
guess like all these famous TikTok people keep going to see Diazsta in Crompton.
Okay.
And I think it's just bringing people in, like people that have like millions of followers are going to their shops. And I think, you know, they probably see what else is around. So like past few Saturdays and Sundays have been really busy for us. It's awesome. It kind of feels like old times, you
Yeah.
know, like a little bit of normalcy. So
I love it. Now, you've also spun up a new business in 2020 as well. Tell us a little bit about that business.
So it's the Diazsta Designs, and everyone gets the name wrong, but it's like Fiesta, but Diazsta instead. I've always loved parties. I've always loved throwing parties and hosting. I was never like a partier in high school. I always played sports. I was nervous. My mom always put this like fear of God in me, but I always loved hosting parties or having people over. And then, you know, when we bought our house, I was so excited because I wanted to host all the holidays. And then, you know, I had COVID over the summer, and two of my really good friends were turning 40. And I was like, well, I have 2 weeks that I'm going to be sitting on the couch. So I'm going to plan this like really small gathering. I think there was 6 or 8 of us
You
for
really
them.
do refuse to sleep and
Yeah,
rest.
no, I've been up since 2 o'clock this morning. I am not a good sleeper. I get like 4 hours. It's bad, but it's so funny. My assistant will be like, "You emailed me at like 1:55 this morning, and you're here right now. It's 7:30." I'm like, "I don't sleep." So I threw this little party for them, and it was like, you know, it had all these little details, and I just loved it. I love the process. And then my sister-in-law is a very talented interior designer. She travels all over the country. She just did a $40 million house in St. Louis. It was like unbelievable. It burned to the ground 3 years ago, so they've been redoing this now for 3 years. Every piece of furniture is custom. Like, it's so stunning. And she won a big award for New England Home Magazine. She was one of the top 2 interior designers in New England. So everything got canceled for her because of COVID. So I was like, well, I guess I could throw her a party at our house, you know, a small gathering. And that was amazing, especially because it's a little nerve-wracking throwing a party for an interior designer because everything is about details. And I'm more of like I know I have a colorful jacket on today, but underneath is all black. I normally only wear black. And she loves color, so it kind of threw me, you know, for a loop. And then one of my best friends turned 30, and she loved Tupac, and he died on her birthday and whatever. So I had all these little events planned, and people were like, "You're really good at this." And we lost a lot of weddings through Queen's Cups because of COVID. And, you know, we normally did 30 weddings a year, catered it. And I just said, well, you know, I do really love this. So I'm just going to go for it. So I said, well, I'm going to focus on like doing small parties where I can go to people's houses where they feel comfortable and, you know, they're not spending a ton of money. You know, my husband and I met at Smokestack during a bar crawl for a customer of mine, and we got married there. We surprised everyone, less than 30 people. We just told everyone, like, oh, let's get dinner, like different groups of people, like, let's get dinner before the summer comes. And they showed up, and there was a wedding at Smokestack Barbecue.
I've never heard one. I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
Like that.
So, and we got married for $3,000. So I was like,
that's the way to do it.
yeah, right. You know, and that was like really cool. And people always said, oh, I wish I got married like that, you know? And so I just had the idea in my head, and I launched it, and it's like been pretty awesome so far.
Congratulations.
So, thank you.
Congratulations. So I love it. You got married for $3,000 and your first business cost you $18,000.
I know,
so
right?
You got your priorities right. I like it. So.
And we planned it in 3 weeks. So
yep.
I did have the flu, but yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And it's, you know, to an extent, they're synergistic businesses as well, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
I mean, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about detail, and a lot of stuff that I learned from Queen's Cups I carry over to Diazsta. So
yeah, I love it. And I know there's you know, one of the things that, you know, that we look at here is all of the other things that you do, the behind the scenes stuff. You know, we know that, every month you guys donate tips
Yeah.
to like a charity, and I actually don't know what February is yet. I remember what January was. Did you guys decide on one for February?
No
yet?
Mutts Left Behind.
Oh,
we
like
get a
that.
lot of animal ones, which is pretty awesome. We're always looking for, suggestions. So
Yeah, and the nonprofits actually go to your website and you fill out some information and you choose. So.
Or they can email, or they can email me, and then it's a pretty simple process.
Yeah,
so
I love that, and that what a great way for your entire staff to be able to participate as well.
Yeah,
and
for
things
sure.
Like that. So.
Yeah, it gives them an outlet, and they give me suggestions too. And you guys are right near Be Like Brit. We sponsor 2 kids from Haiti every month. I traveled to Haiti in 2019.
That was a big year for you.
And that was a amazing experience. I was completely shocked when I got there, and it just gives you a whole new respect and just love for life, because some people have nothing and they're just like the happiest people ever.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty awesome.
Gives you the opportunity to think about it and probably never complain yourself, or not as much.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I love it. Well, 2019 was definitely a good year for you.
Year.
Renee, I appreciate you sharing your story today. My hope is that 2021 is just like your 2019.
I hope so.
Thank you
so
very much for sharing with us today. And we'll share all your contact information below as well, if anybody wants to get a hold of you. Thank you for listening to the Founder Story Podcast. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show. And don't forget to check out some of the other great stories.